Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Connect and Serve, our digital way to work through all our stuff at Hives for Heroes and invite special guests so you can learn more about this journey of beekeeping. A little business to take care of. Of course, we are Hives for Heroes, connecting veterans and first responders to beekeeping all over the country, providing life-saving and oftentimes life-changing resources for our nation's heroes. So we want to be able to take care of our brothers and sisters here in a way that gives you the opportunity for your success. Welcome. We have such an incredible guest today. Dr. Ferhat Ozturk is one of the most brilliant people on the planet, but also one of the kindest, gentlest persons and such a great friend. I'm going to go through his bio real quick that he has on his LinkedIn page. Dr. Ferhat is a goal-oriented scientist, educator, and mentor for the undergraduate and graduate students specializing in course-based research experiences. During the last decade, he specialized in medicinal use of honey with a strong PhD background in gene therapy, molecular and cellular biology, bioinformatics, and biochemistry research. He took this knowledge and applied it to the unique biological and chemical makeup of different monofloral honey from around the world, allowing him to unlock this hidden knowledge of age-old wisdom regarding the healing benefits of honey. His current research at UTSA, which is the University of Texas in San Antonio, is helping to identify US-based honey sources that contained high bioactivity levels and medicinal properties that can only compete with, but outperform those of current medical grade honeys. This is incredible. Welcome to Connect and Serve, Dr. Ferhat.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, thank you so much. We always enjoy having you. I mean, we get to spend some time with you, off camera and things of that nature. Your research is just doing incredible things. And for us, we understand the fact that because we talk about honey. A lot of people don't know honey. They think they know honey. They think it's labeled, right? They think all sorts of different things. So we want to set the record straight with you being here on Connect and Serve. Of course, you know what we do. We serve our heroes in a capacity of allowing them access and opportunity to their beekeeping journey. And that beautiful byproduct for a lot of us is that honey. So if you would just, share a little bit about what you're doing, your background, and how you got into honey.
So right now I am teaching honey as a research class for the undergraduates, which is called Medicinal Properties of Honey. And I'm also teaching an honors course for honey as a sweet medicine for students from the undergraduate students at the University of Texas, San Antonio. And I'm teaching these classes, the cure class for 3 years right now. And most of my students are pre-health professionals, like the pre-medical, pre-dental, or vet students. So, and this gives me a lot of, joy that the students are very open to understand how honey can be a medicine, how honey has been used as a medicine for thousands of years, and what is the current understanding of the honey? I mean, is it just a food, or is it more than a food? It is a medicine. And how do we use this medicine to treat different diseases, primarily for wound healing, and as well as, gastrointestinal diseases, or even conjunctivitis, like eye disease, or it can be used for, like, it can even prevent some of the diseases such as cardiovascular disease, neurological disease, and cancer because of its antioxidant property. So all these things are like coming from the honey, but we need to find out which honey has more of these properties, because you know that not every honey is created equal, right? So, and then honey is a medicine, but not every honey is created equal. Then we need to find which honey has more medicinal properties. So that's what my research is. That's what my education, my mentorship is all about. And I'm doing this like about 13 years because I first started back in Turkey. I was the director of Honey Research Center there. And then my interest with the honey started when I was working on cleft palate, when the roof of the mouth has a cleft and when it's born. So I was studying the mechanism of cleft palate and when I was doing postdoc at Nebraska Medical Center. So, and then I studied the mechanism of wound healing at the same time because it's the same mechanism. And I found out honey is the ultimate wound healer for thousands of years, used by every civilization on earth. But now honey is put aside after the advent of antibiotics. So honey is not as much as used, or it's mostly used as a traditional medicine that our grandparents are just shoveling honey into our mouth when you have a sore throat. But it is definitely underestimating the power of honey. So, and then since then, I mean, I was introduced to honey by my university's president, Professor Yunus Bekdemir from Turkey. So he's a chemist, and he's also fell in love with honey about 20 years ago. So he kind of instilled the love of honey into me. And also another professor from Malaysia, Kamaluddin Yusuf. So he's a biochemist and working about honey. So these are my two mentors that
Wow.
really engaged me in honey as a medicine since 2012. And then I was the director of Honey Research Center, and I came to the United States in 2016, and I taught bees and medicinal honey as a class at Alma College, Michigan. But then I was a high school teacher for a while, but I never give up my love with the honey, and I studied honey as I collected samples from Michigan when I was in Alma College, and then in Texas with the TBA. Even during the COVID time, I volunteered in a lab so I can work on analyzing the Texan honeys to find out which honey has more antioxidant potential and antimicrobial potentials. So I believe my love with the honey, my passion with the honey has brought me here now. So I received a grant from USDA for
Yes.
the honey pathway. So which is honey is like 5 letters. So honeybee oriented next gen entrepreneurs and youth. So basically, this is a pathway program that's educating and raising awareness for the undergraduate and graduate students about honeybees, beekeeping, and medicinal honey. So, and it is as you know, it's a
Wow.
$2.89 million grant for 5 years. So it gives me a lot of opportunities to spread the word of honey as a medicine.
Yeah, and if y'all can't tell why we love Dr. Ferhat, he just summed it up right there. Incredible and awesomely humble, and just so much knowledge. And I know there's going to be questions that come up in our chat. So if you do have questions, and we try to get to those, if you're watching live right now, welcome again. This is Hives for Heroes. We're talking to Dr. Ferhat from Honey Pathway at UTSA, University of Texas, San Antonio, who has tons and tons and tons of experience in honey specifically. And he just gave you his background. That's a lot. And then his LinkedIn bio has words that most people can't pronounce, and mentors that are just incredible leaders, globally. So again, thank you for being here. Again, we're connecting and serving, right? We get to connect to people like you. They get to connect to you now too. You just talked to me off screen
Sure.
that people have already reached out to you today, being like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I have a question." Right? That's awesome. That's what we want to do here. Connect to the resources that are available, which is vast at this time, and then serve. How do we utilize this knowledge to go out and serve our brothers and sisters, serve our families, and serve our communities? So you're going to learn a lot here. So welcome, everybody. If this is your first time, I hope you very much enjoy it. So you talked about the specific aspects of honey. There's very high level stuff there, right? You're talking about molecular biology and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
For the general consumer, right now, it seems that there is a big price difference in honey, right? You go to the shelf and you have a
Oh,
plastic bottle of honey, and it's $3, and you're going, why is
yeah.
local or U.S. honey so expensive? There is a difference. Can you talk about the difference between maybe imported honey and then the honey that you're going to go get from our hives here on the channel?
Sure. I mean, first of all, I'm a local honey fan. So I mean, I love the local honey. I love the local beekeepers' honey, and then they are, I mean, helpful for so many reasons for our health, for benefits. So number one, local beekeepers are, I mean, much liable than the commercial honey packers. So because I mean, they kind of like what is the source is coming from, and most of the local beekeepers are like they kind of they that how they are raising their honeybees, and then once you know the people, and then it will become more helpful to use them. And the difference, what we found out, like we analyzed 43 honey samples from grocery stores. Is it okay to name companies or
Sure. I
I
mean,
mean,
I don't
the
want
grocery stores that you mostly go, and
we
but
free
we
freedom
had
all the
about
time right
six
here.
or seven different stores actually, like the well-known brands, and as well as an international market in San Antonio. And then we also compared them with the local San Antonio beekeepers honey. So what we found out when we compared their bioactivity levels, which we use for medical grade honey, so we found out local honeys, local beekeeper honeys are about 4 times more potential for to become a medical grade honey when compared to grocery store honeys. So most of the grocery store honeys, they don't possess any antimicrobial activity. They don't kill the bacteria. And then also, most of the grocery store honeys, they don't have antioxidant activity either.
Mm.
So, and on the other hand, as you may know, I mean, there's a big fraud, like a large amount of fraud going on in the international honey market. So, according to the research, about one third, like 33% of the honeys in the international honey trade market are fraud. They are either blended with other syrups or they're not even honey. They are just some kind of a maltose syrup, glucose syrup, it is like a corn syrup or fructose syrup, so it's kind of a different syrups are blended with honey to make it cheaper, and then and it's very hard to catch, by the way. I mean, the adulterers are most of the time they catch the steps of the scientists very quickly, and they can like overcome the equipment to analyze them. And
Right.
unfortunately, in our country, the system to analyze the honeys from our customs is not updated very quickly. So, like for example, in Germany, they are using nuclear magnetic resonance, like NMR, to identify the source of the honeys or the origin of them. And we also have GCMS and LCMS and IRS. So these kind of different scientific methods are used to identify adulterated honey or to if the honey, the origin of the honey, if it is not exposed. So these kind of methodologies help us or help the consumers to know where it is coming from.
Wow.
For example, in the US, in Europe, last year it was on the news, 46% of the honeys on the market shelves were not honey, were not meeting the regulations or criteria to become to sold as honey. So it's all about Europe. And I also heard from Germany, like they returned about 90% of the honey from the customs back because
Wow.
again they do not meet the criteria of being sold as a honey. But I think in our country we don't have that much of rejections. So, and US is United States is importing honey from, I think, more than 15 different countries, and then including Ukraine and Argentina and Vietnam and India. So all these countries are sending their honeys to us, but they are blended with US honeys, and it is how it is sold, US grade A honey. But at the end, I mean, in my humble opinion, and I always mention to my students, to my audience all the time, please find the local beekeepers, and especially a veteran will be more helpful in this case. So find a local beekeeper, be friends with them, and start buying your honey from your local beekeeper, as both of you will win because you're gonna get very good high grade honey, and especially if it is darker honey, which means that it has more antioxidant properties in it. So you will win because you'll have get something very beneficial for your health, which you can use for your wounds, for your gastrointestinal disease, for your respiratory infections, for your eye disease. So you can use it for your whole family. On the other hand, your local beekeeper will also get more for their honey. Unfortunately, they cannot compete with the grocery store honeys. Like when you
Right.
go to farmers market, so people mostly sell their honey for $8 to $10 per pound because the grocery store honey is about $5 6 per pound. But if you go to the other, like if you want to buy medical grade honey, which is like Manuka honey, it is about 7 to 14 times more expensive than
Yes.
the local beekeeper's honey. So what makes that honey unique? Because there is a research behind Manuka honey for more than 30 years. So Professor Peter Mullen from New Zealand, he analyzed Manuka honeys in 1990s and identified them as high antimicrobial potential. And then the marketers and the promoters,
Oh
they
yeah.
got this knowledge, and Manuka honey was about like $20 per kilo in 1990s. In early 2000s, it was about 2,000 per kilo. So what did they do with Manuka? How did it increase the price for 100 times? Then it goes down again, but it was that expensive because instead of selling them as a kilo, like a 2 pound, 2.2 pounds, they started to sell them in grams. Like they were putting 25 grams of honey into a tube, and this is Manuka honey, this is a medicine. So this is how the marketing has worked, and then they were able to increase the price. Now it is more normalized,
Hmm.
but at the end, it is still more than 10 times more expensive, our local beekeepers' honey. So that's why our research, I believe, will be very helpful for local beekeepers to identify their honey's medicinal potential and as well as to promote it as medical grade honey in the market. And as you may know, there's a very good market for medical grade honey in the wound healing market because FDA approved Manuka honey in 2008 as a medical grade honey. And then since then, there are several wound devices has been developed by using Manuka honey, and then they are in the market in the wound healing market. And also, even I have when I went to Brooks Hospital in San Antonio in the burn unit, and they told me that they are already using honey in the Brooks
That's
Army
incredible.
Hospital's burn unit. So, which means that it is out there. I mean, they still have those honey patches, but unfortunately, or maybe I would say, but they are fortunately it's honey, but they're all coming from New Zealand. And
Yeah.
Manuka honey has a lot of fraud in itself too, because there's a common joke. I think you know this, but Manuka honey is produced 10,000 tons and it is sold 100,000 tons in the world. So how can you make 10 to 100,000? So that's like blending. So not every
Right.
Manuka is Manuka. It's the other issue with the medical grade honey. So hopefully we
And
will
that
be
goes into
able to
labeling as
identify
well.
these honeys.
Yeah,
Sorry,
because that goes
go
into
ahead.
labeling as well, right? Because in Europe there's a definition for honey. Here
Yes.
it's very loose. So it's kind of hard to turn back honey when you don't have a definition for honey, right? As it's being imported. And I love that comment. Like, know your beekeeper. There's somebody in your
Yes.
area that's beekeeper. We're a network that you can see all those people. We actually connect you with them. If you're not,
Mhm.
producing honey yet, find somebody. They're in the network. I promise you that. And then share their businesses. I mean, that's a piece of that is
Definitely.
people have to know that there are significant issues in the honey industry. It is the number one adulterated food source on the planet. That's
Yes.
crazy. That's insane, and people don't know that. So we have to share this with people, and that's why working with you and Honey Pathways is such a powerful relationship because we have a network that can actually spread this and give you a bigger microphone, like we were talking about, because we love
Oh,
what you're doing.
thank you
On
so much. I mean, it's my pleasure. Go ahead.
And so local, so you're talking local honey. So I was going to ask, is Manuka honey, right? Is it the same as molecularly, right, on the medicinal properties as you're putting it under a microscope? What's the difference
Mhm.
between, I think we talked about last time, like Austin honey, right? The Austin in the Central Hills or the hills of Texas to the Manuka side.
I mean, so Manuka honey is well known by its source. So Manuka is a tea tree in New Zealand. So it's a Leptospermum falciparum tree. So the tree, I mean, the bees are visiting this tree as well as other trees or other flowers, blossoms in the area. And then when they make honey out of them, they also add Manuka pollens in them, which is collected from the trees. And from this tree, there's a special chemical coming from, which is called methyl glyoxal. So methyl glyoxal, MgO, is the value or is being used to identify the value of Manuka honey. So you can see like 50 plus MgO, 100 plus MgO, 250 MgO, 550 MgO, 820 or 830 MgO, and even more than 1000 MgO. So as the MgO goes up, the price is also going up. Okay. Again, in a wholesale market, I mean, in the wholesale grocery store. So, for example, if you go and buy Manuka honey from them, it's about like it is the moderate level Manuka honey. It is 263 plus, I think. So it's about like $30 per 8 ounce. So which means about $60 per pound. So and then if you buy from their online store because they don't sell it in the in store, if you need to go online to get a higher medical grade honey or Manuka honey from them, so it's about like $120 per 8 ounces as well. So you
Oh
can
well,
see how much the price is different.
big
So,
time.
but so Manuka has established its values, like established the chemical ingredient in it. And again, it's about there for 30 years. So there's a lot
Right.
of research. So I'm here about 3 years only. So I'm in San Antonio.
You got to
So
do it
at
for us.
UTSA. Yeah.
We need some data
So
behind
sorry, what's the
that.
question?
I said you got to do it for us. We need some data behind that.
Yeah, so we need to do more data. So as you know, honey is coming from the nectar of the flowers, but as well as it is coming from the secretion of the trees or excretion of the aphids or insects. So this nectar source is the main determinant for the medical grade honey. So for Manuka honey, nectar is coming from the Manuka tree or tea tree. For other medical grade honeys in San Antonio or in whole Texas is it is mostly coming from the oak trees in the hill country or the buckwheat in the plains, or it is coming from some other sources. We could not identify the pollen source yet, but it is coming from the plantation, or it's coming from the forage or landscape that the bees are foraging and collecting the nectar. So, but I can generalize, like I can say a general understanding of which honeys has more medicinal potential in your local area. I would say it's a dark honey, and then it should be most of fall harvest. And I also recommend to people buy comb honey. So as you may know, comb honey is more expensive than straight honey, although there is less honey in comb honey, like you have also wax in it. So why it is more expensive? Because it is rare. I mean, not so many people are selling this. But again, if you would like to kind of serve the people, I think comb honey will be a great service. And the key thing for comb honey is when the bees put the honey into the wells or into the cells in the honeycomb, they seal it with wax, and nobody opens it before you. So as the customer, you are the first person opening
Oh,
or
yeah.
removing the seal, and now it is directly coming from honeybees directly to you. So there is no oxidation, because when you extract the honey or when you strain the honey, when it is exposed to the air, its oxidation starts. So the color of honey may start changing as soon as it is strained. And then most of the time, again, the grocery store honeys or people heat the honey to feel it easier, like because it's very viscous. So heating also changes the chemistry of the honey. And then the other one is shelf life. I mean, the more you leave the honey under the bright light, so it will become more darker. Like eventually it get darker because the light and heat will initiate some chemical reactions inside the honey, because honey has live enzymes in it, like
Yeah.
it is diastase, glucose oxidase, and invertase, and also catalase. So these enzymes are still live inside the honey. And when they're exposed to light, so they will start interacting with phenolic acids or flavonoids, and these kind of like some color changes may happen inside the honey. So all these things are accumulated. But when it is sealed in the comb, none of these things are happening because you don't expose your honey to the outside world. So it's in the seal. Bees sealed it. Is it sterile? Because bees are very sterile animals. I mean, they don't allow any fungus or bacteria grow in their hives. So as long as it's healthy, so you seal it, it's sealed, and now that honey is again. To summarize what I said, so local honey, dark honey, and comb honey. So these three properties will give you a very good medical grade honey. But again, in terms of
That's
pollen
incredible.
identification, we are still walking steps on those.
Well, I love how you put it simply, to the consumer and really that experience of honey, that would be the
Mhm.
first time that those cells are opened. That's pretty cool. I hadn't thought of it like that. It's just like, okay, cool. We're cutting comb in there and putting into a jar or whatever you do, right? Maybe you just do the cut comb honey, but that's a very good visual. That's the first time the user. It's the first time those cells have been opened. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. And I mean, you just have I know there's people on the call that have been around honey for years, and there's some that have been around honey for a couple days. So you might be
Mhm.
talking, at a high level, but this is stuff that you can research yourself as well, right? You can reach
Yes.
out to Dr. Ferhat at UTSA. It doesn't have to all be on this call, but he's open and a resource available to you. Terry Romanco asks, have you obtained any spotted lanternfly honeydew honey from Dr. Robin Underwood?
Oh, this is a directed question. I can see it. This is what I was going to talk about, to be honest, because when I talk about San Antonio and Texas honey, I already have about more than 70 samples from spotted lanternfly honey, because spotted lanternfly honey is the most promising medical grade honey in the US right now.
Oh, wow.
So they have a similar story with the Manuka honey, by the way. So Manuka honey was not well understood by the New Zealand people. It was like they were feeding it back to the bees, or they were feeding to the other animals, because it doesn't taste like honey. It doesn't look like honey. So spotted lanternfly honey has a very similar story. When the beekeepers harvested their SLF honey, or spotted lanternfly honey, for the first time, they didn't like it, and they said, I cannot sell this honey. People are not buying because it is smoky, and it doesn't smell good. It is dark and it's cloudy. So how I'm going to sell this? So people started to feed it back to their bees, or just give it for free. And then when I gave a talk in Maryland last year, I mean in August, in the Eastern Apiculture Society,
Uh-huh.
so there was a lady, I think she was giving out free SLF honey to the audience, sorry, to the people in the expo area. And then after my talk, people rushed into the expo to get more of these spotted lanternfly honey. So again, this is one of the, I mean, SLF honey has very good antimicrobial property. Some of them overcompete Manuka honeys, so they have higher antimicrobial properties, especially for Staph aureus and some other bacteria. And at the same time, antioxidant activities are pretty high because it's a very nice dark color honey. So Manuka honey is not dark color. That's why antioxidant in Manuka is not very high. Manuka is more antimicrobial. But spotted lanternfly honey is more, I mean, it is both antimicrobial and antioxidant. So that's why, I mean, it is one of the strongest candidates to become medical grade honey from the US.
And this is regional?
Yes, yes. Spotted lanternfly honey is first identified in Pennsylvania and New Jersey area. Then these, okay, let me tell about what is spotted lanternfly honey. So basically, as I mentioned, honey's nectar is coming from different sources, either the flower blossoms or secretions of the flower plants, and also excretion of the insects. So spotted lanternfly is an insect that's an invasive insect that was introduced to the US on the rocks, imported rocks, because their eggs were very hard to, they were easily negligible. So those start growing in Pennsylvania in 2014. And then what they do is these spotted lanternfly, they are very beautiful animals, by the way. They have like nice red spots on them on the black background. So what they do is they are phloem feeders, like, or sap feeders. So basically they go to the tree and they insert their, mouthpiece, and then they start sucking it. So it is one shot. I mean, they can go to the phloem directly and then they start sucking it. And the younger the tree, the more pressure is, because basically trees are carrying their sugar from their leaves to the roots and carrying water from roots to the leaves, right? So because the food coming from from the leaves to the roots is going to the phloem, and these guys are feeding from there directly, like drinking from a fire hose. So they are getting a lot of sugar, and they cannot digest all of it. About 90% of what they eat or drink, they excrete it, like they pee it. Sorry, but then it becomes a very sweet uh, source for the bees, like nectar. I don't want to say sweet pea, but yeah. So the bees go and collect this, and then they make honey out of this. So again, this is not pea, by the way. This is just like, it's a pretty clean source actually for the bees, and bees already sterilize it. So anyway, and then this is the nectar source. And then the spotted lanternfly honey is probably because of the trees they are feeding, because bees cannot get directly from the trees unless it is secreted. So this is an intermediate agent. Again, it's an invasive species, but its honey is very potential to become medical grade honey in the US.
Wow. I learned a lot in that. So we got pee and throw up, and this is going to be great. This is the best call ever, right? Got another couple questions. What's the timeline for enzyme degradation from stored honey? Would bottling in a dark glass slow this process?
I mean, as long as the heat doesn't go above 120 Fahrenheit, like, which is 55 degrees Celsius, so the enzymes will remain safe. But again, the higher the heat, the higher they are prone to denaturation. So if you keep it at, let's say, 120 degrees Fahrenheit for day or 2 days, you will see definitely the darkening of the honey. So,
Okay.
and again, the enzymes will be lost. But if it is for a short term, like, okay, you have the barrel, you heat it up, fill it, the honey is like within an hour or maybe 2 hours. I don't know how that system works, by the way. I'm not a honey packer. So, but if you can do it in a short amount of time, so the enzyme degradation will be much less. So that's, I think that is like that I can say. And again, in the storage, honey doesn't have a shelf life, by the way. I mean, honey can remain as honey for thousands of years. So which means that it may lose some of its medicinal property, especially glucose oxidase enzyme, which is the source for hydrogen peroxide. So basically, in honey, we have glucose coming from the sucrose sugar, and then we have glucose oxidase enzyme. So when you dilute the honey in water, glucose and water will be converted into gluconic acid and hydrogen peroxide. So this hydrogen peroxide activity is going down year by year. So according to a study, like it may go up to 40% less after 1 year later. So, which means that like antimicrobial activity coming from peroxide or hydrogen peroxide can go down eventually as the honey is stored for longer years. But I personally did not do that kind of research now. But as far as I read from the scientific articles, so there was a study showing that the peroxide activity was going down. But again, it is not the same in every honey, by the way. Some of the honeys lose 10%, some of them lose up to 40%. And again, it is all depends on the constituent inside the honey, because there
Right.
are, according to a very recent study that we have done in metabolomics, there were more than 3,500 chemicals inside the honey.
Oh,
So
wow.
by the metabolomics analysis, I mean, I usually say there are more than 200 compounds, but this was based on like former studies. So we have a very recent study by University of British Columbia, and they did metabolomics on spotted lanternfly honey. And what they found is there are 3,500, and only 600 of them are has chemical names. About 3,000 of them they don't have chemical names yet in the libraries. So again, honey is very rich in different chemicals, and these are all coming from plants or from the bees themselves. And this needs time. I mean, for degradation, it may need more time for those. And
That's
again, the
that was
constituents, the
another.
mixture can identify. Sorry.
Wow, 35. That's another. I would have never known that. 3,500 different properties inside of there.
Yes.
Scott's asking, we know eating local honey can reduce allergic reactions to local pollen. Will eating your bees reduce allergic reactions to their stings?
Okay. So I'm sorry, but both of these things are not
They're not the
like
same.
practical. I would say they are not applicable in the medical life. So first of all, there's a very like the amount of pollen inside the honey is not enough to desensitize somebody. So, for example, you have allergies to apples, and if you have apple pollen inside the honey, so that pollen inside the honey is not enough to initiate or inactivate your sensitivity to the allergen. So that's number one. Number two, uh, the allergens that make us sick are all wind pollinated
Hmm.
allergens. So like from pine or ash or cedar, so or the poplars. So these are all wind pollinated pollens. And honeybees, they only collect animal pollinated pollen. So the pollen that honeybees are collecting are much heavier, but because they cannot blow on the wind. So they attach to the legs of the honeybee and they are brought to the hive. So most of the, I mean, almost all the pollens that honeybees are bringing to the hive, they are not allergen pollens. They are just pollens for reproduction of the plants. So that's why, I mean, using local honey may not, again, I'm careful about this wording, but may not be desensitize you to the local allergens. But as far as we know, local honeys are more potent, and also they are more immunomodulating when compared to grocery store honeys. That's why we need to still keep using local honey
Yeah.
to help our immune system, because it will help our immune system more than the grocery store honeys. But
Yeah.
again, at the end, this like getting stung by the local bees can different allergies? No, because allergy to the bee venom is totally different from depending on where it is coming from. It's a, I mean, normally bee sting cannot kill you directly, so you need to have at least I forgot the number, more than 200 bees needs to sting you for somebody to die. So that much of thing. But if a person has an allergy, even one sting can initiate anaphylaxis, and this
Right.
anaphylaxis can cause serious consequences. So, okay, bee sting don't kill you. Anaphylaxis is the one that kills the people. But again, the number of people dying from bee sting is in the whole world. It is about 250 people per year. So it's not
No
a
way.
huge number. I mean, it's not as scary as it is promoted, because especially in our country, people are aware of their allergies, and we have emergency services. And once you got stung, you have about, again, I'm not an immunologist or allergent, but if you have allergic reactions, you have about like 15 to 20 minutes of time to get the EpiPen. So once you get the EpiPen, then your allergies or it will go down, your epinephrine will slow down you, and then your anaphylaxis will be under control. So If you are in a very distant area that no ambulance can come in 15, 20 minutes, then yes, you may have a serious condition. But most of us, when we are living in the city or in the outside, I mean, as long as you have a cell phone, call 911, probably somebody will show up in less than 20 minutes.
Yeah, safety tip for the day. Try to go out in buddy pairs and carry your EpiPen just in case. Make sure you have
Yeah.
cell service if you can. So how can our beekeepers? There's one follow-on question to labeling actually. So it's
Mhm.
very difficult for the consumer to understand this because one, we have to educate, but we can't educate if we don't know. So we're looking to you for that education as well. But on a label, on a bottle, like how there are no standards. So how do we kind of make a standard? Does that make
Mhm.
sense? Like what can
Yeah.
we do to better inform the general public of the differences between these honeys, but also in self-interest, promote our local beekeepers?
Okay. Yeah, that's a very good question, and I'm also looking for this for myself too. Like, if I need to stop, like if I need to start selling local honeys, how to name those? So there are some iffy words that we cannot use. Like, we cannot use the word medical or healing or curative. So these are the words that USDA or FDA doesn't like, and you may get warnings, or even you may lose your company if you keep
Wow.
using those. Like, honey heals the wound, or if you say honey cures the medical condition, or honey cures wounds, or honey cures respiratory disease. So these words cannot be used, but we can use help. So honey helps alleviate your allergies, or honey can help alleviate, or honey can help your wound heal faster. Honey can help, or this local honey can help your gastrointestinal system to be relieved, or diarrhea to get relieved. So we are not using the cure or treat or heal, but we are using the words honey can help with these, or may
Yeah.
help with these in conditions. So by this way, we can educate the people. But on the other hand, when you write something, you have more responsibility, more liability. But when you use your own words, like when you are selling your honey, or when you are these kind of YouTube videos or so, so these are more helpful because this is social media or word of mouth is not considered as like as seriously, or I don't know, like the FDA doesn't prohibit these kind of things. Like when you talk, it's freedom of expression. I mean, our First Amendment.
Freedom.
So, but when you write, it's a liability.
Awesome. That's a great answer to the question. Thank you so much for that. We have another one here. How do you define local honey? How far away counts as local? And then as a follow-up to that, how can our beekeepers ensure that they have the highest quality of honey, even in their own local areas?
Okay. I mean, local honey is, I don't have an exact definition or range, but most of the time, depending on your city, like San Antonio is a big city, that where I live. And then, like, if I say local honey within 10 miles, I'm still inside the city. Even after 30 miles, I'm still
Yeah,
inside the
that's
city.
right.
So, but if you're in the rural area, 10 miles is good enough, I mean, for local honey. But we know that bees can go up to 5 miles to collect nectar. So, and then the comfortable area for the bees is mostly 2 miles radius. So as long as it is within a 2 mile radius, it can be considered as local honey. But when I say local honey, like if I buy honey from Austin, it is still local honey. I mean, it is not like if a local beekeeper from Austin, yes, it is about 1 hour away from here, but still can be considered local honey because it is being raised, or bees are taken care of by the local beekeeper. And as long as it is, and I'm also supporter of treatment-free beekeeping. So as long as it's not treated and it is, done by a local beekeeper, then it is still considered as a local honey. But getting honey from California is not local honey anymore. Florida will not be local for Texas.
Right.
So I know sometimes we have this discussion in Texas for real Texas honey. Like,
Yep.
honeybees don't know the borders. So, for example, if you have honeybees close to Louisiana and your bees go to Louisiana and come back, I mean, within 5 miles, are they not local anymore? They are still local, but again, they're at the border. So, or in the Oklahoma or New Mexico, whatever you name it, but to the borders, or Mexico, they go and come back. I mean, because 5 miles they can go. So, which means that, I mean, depending on your city, I would say like 20 to 30 miles within your radius can be considered as local honey. And again, local beekeepers' honey can be considered local honey, and even the commercial beekeepers who are producing in the local area still considered as local honey. By the way, it doesn't have to be small scale or sideliners. Even if you have commercial beekeepers in the area in your like within your range, so then it is still considered as local honey. Like we have some big commercial beekeepers in Seguin or in like New Berlin and other areas too.
So when it comes to that local side, that's a great like thought through of the definition. So when it comes to the honey aspect, like we use terms like real honey and raw honey, so that
Yeah.
it's descriptive. We don't use the term pure. I'm glad you just said that because you don't know the chemicals that are rainwater, runoff, etc. For those because that can still be in that honey. But is that fine? Is that like real raw honey? I mean, that's what it
Yeah, it's
is.
totally fine to use those wordings because raw honey means it is not heated, it's not processed. So, and raw honey, like as long as you strain it and then preferably with the like not too hot or like warm temperatures and you fill it, it is still considered raw honey. And again, local honey is the definition, but pure honey, I don't like the word pure honey because honey is already pure. You cannot purify honey further. So, like raw honey means like sometimes you may have some beeswax remnants in it, or you can have some bee pieces even. So, but again, this is not like a common thing. But for the pure honey, what they do is they heat the honey to a high temperature, I mean 140, 50 maybe, and
Yeah.
then they add diatomous earth, and diatomous earth and mix it well, and then diatomous earth will collect all the pollens. So they will
Okay.
attach to the pollens and then they apply pressure so that they can go through a 0.45 micron filter. So it's a pretty small filter. So honey can pass, but pollen don't. So, and what is the reason for this? Because when you remove the pollens from the honey, it will not crystallize for several years. Because without pollen, there's no crystallization. So that's why the honey is in the grocery store shelves. Then they don't crystallize, so because there's a misunderstanding, crystallized honey is not good honey, but no, crystallized honey is natural honey.
Right.
It's an evidence that there's pollen inside the honey. It's an evidence there's glucose inside the honey. It's an evidence it is local. I mean, it is honey made by the honeybees. So crystal honey is not should not be considered as spoilage. On the other hand, yes. So pure honey is mostly used for those honeys which are filtered. So again, some people use it for their own honeys as pure, but I personally prefer the raw honey and local honey in the wording.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Mayo News Now says their ag inspector says 150 miles from home base is still local for them. So again, you're going to see different definitions. Take what you want from this. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're here to share ideas, talk through these things, and then, as we always say, it's your journey. You're the one that's going through this stuff. We're providing resources and opportunities, but you're the one that's going to be doing it. So, be smart with it and know your area, know the people that you're talking to and have these conversations with them. I guarantee you putting your time and effort into those customers, for example, they will come back and buy from you. The honey literally tastes different than the store shelf.
Yeah.
Every single time people are like, wow, I've never had real honey before, apparently. Right? You'll get those comments very, very often. Gary Burns out of California says, is honey considered organic, or do you need to follow your bees in their nectar to their nectar sources?
Okay. The word organic, again, I'm not an expert on the word organic thing, but I would say that like organic is mostly used if you are chemical free, right? If you are not using chemicals for organic farming. So you just like use um, non like biological agents as a fertilizer or to clean up the things. So for the organic beekeeping, I mean, there is no way that you can control your bees within the 5 mile radius. And 5 mile radius means about 800 hectare of area. I mean, nobody owns, I know it's very few people may own this much of area. So you cannot control all the plantings or all the forage in that large area. So in this case, you may not convince your bees, and you cannot put the honeybees into greenhouse, they die. So they don't like greenhouse, they want freedom. So what happens is that like organic honey can be something like this. Let's say in the hill country of between San Antonio and Austin, hill country is not feasible for agriculture. So, and then in this case, there are lots of short trees or shrubs and other like flowers. So in hill country, you can tell your honey organic because there's no farming happening in the
Yeah,
area.
there's nothing out there.
But
Yeah.
if you have a monoculture, like if you have miles and miles of corn or soy or cotton, and then you have put your bees there, there's no way it can be organic there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like depending on where you put your, like if you put your honeybees into a forest, yes, it will be an organic honey. And you can even add the word forest honey because according to my experience, like the higher the elevation of the honey, the higher bioactivity potential is coming out from them. Because higher elevation plants, they have more antioxidants in them to protect themselves from the altitude conditions. So and then bees collect their flowers and blossoms and as well as from the trees secretions. So they put them into the hive. So the bees collecting nectar from high altitudes, they have more antioxidant, more antimicrobials in them. So
Wow.
again, if you have a forest honey and high altitude forest honey, it's golden. I mean, it's very hard to find and it is organic as well because there's probably no agriculture happening in the forest. So
Wow.
by this way, you can find out organic honey. But again, there is not a clear definition of organic honey by National Honey Board or
Right.
USDA.
Yeah, I think that's good news for some of our high elevation people up there, Colorado
Yeah.
and things like that. Going, oh, I just got a premium for my organic forest honey there. That's awesome. I think we had one more question down here. Clearly, this is a really serious question here. Obviously, we have a lot of fun. Will honey on my head reduce my balding?
Yes, it can.
Oh my gosh! I thought you were going to say
So,
no.
yes, I mean, it can even help. Again, there is not a significant research. I think there is some mouse or rat study. So when they have balding on them, they put the honey there for a certain amount of, and it starts the regrowth of the hairs in the area. Because honey is a very nutritious product. So as long as your hair cells are alive, and then they have the power to produce that, so when you put the honey there, it will be a nutritious agent. That's number one. The other one is honey is, like invigorating for those hair cells. It's also antioxidant. So most of the time, hair loss can be caused because of the free radicals or oxidative stress that in the area. We know that like even stress can cause more hair loss. So when you put the honey into those areas with it high antioxidant honeys, so they can help with the slow down the balding and as well as even may promote. Again, I cannot guarantee it. Don't sue me if I know Dr. Six said it and it will grow.
The
But
doctor
even
said
if
it.
it doesn't grow, but it doesn't harm anything. So putting honey into your hair will not cause any side effects, but it may cause some positive effects.
Yeah, I personally say honey on everything. My food sources, eggs. Neela thought I was crazy, but Neela literally puts it face. My kids use it for their
Oh,
face and things of that nature. So there's thousands upon thousands of uses for honey. That's why I love these conversations because people might think,
yeah.
well, I just put it in my coffee or I put it in my tea, and that's my thing. But I think last time we talked, you had also mentioned, taking a tablespoon in the morning will now give you a
Yes.
little bit more energy. And then taking a tablespoon at night actually allows the sugars to your brain so you can recover better.
Yes, that will help. I mean, that helps better sleep, and that also helps our memory to get better file. I mean, better organized at night because our brain needs energy at night. But if you eat junk food or if you eat other foods, they will be converted into fat. But when you eat honey, it is stored as a glycogen in the liver, and when the brain needs the energy, the first source it's asking is liver glycogen. So it sends the order to the liver, release some glycogen into the blood. I mean, convert it to glucose and then brain gets the glucose. So honey is a very great source of energy during the sleep time.
I love that.
Yep.
That's going to be one of those things that I tell people as well, because that's the concern. And you have to share with people the negative of eating before bed as right, because that's what your body's going to. But then here's a positive, and people very much respond to things like that. So we'll take a quick second to say, hey, we're going to do a different word today. All right. So we got 2 $100 gift card giveaways for all those that have showed up. So 2 $100 gift cards. We're going to put in the word honey today in the chat. All right. Because we're talking to Mr. Honey right here. Dr. Honey is on here. So we got honey in the chat. And then Neela will go out and do the drawing. And then we will announce those here in the next 5 or so minutes. So honey in the chat. Honey. Awesome. Um,
Can I
let's
add
see.
one thing about using honey
Yeah,
for
go ahead.
face? You mentioned about this. So honey is a great product for acne treatment because especially for teenagers. I have one of my students, actually, she used acne on her face and I keep showing her face on the presentations with her permission. So basically when you use honey's anti-aging properties, because again, it invigorates the cells in your skin on your face, but also it's an antimicrobial. So the acne is mostly caused because of Cutibacterium acnes and anaerobic bacteria living on our face. So it will cause, pus and it will cause infection in the area. So honey can clear up the Cutibacterium acnes. And in our website, and if our audience would like to learn more about these different studies done in the honey pathway, like we have more than 16 posters available. So if they go to honey pathway UTSA, and just Google it, honey pathway UTSA, and go to the research, and then click on plus, and there is a research presentations, research posters. So you can click on them, and you can just like access all these information in a poster format or is in a PowerPoint format. So my slides are also there too, and it is open for people's use if they want to promote the word of honey as a medicine. So I believe those information will be very helpful.
And I love that because you've already done the work. There's no need for y'all to go out and recreate the wheel and do your own research and all this stuff. This is the expertise here, and they've provided these documents and things for us so that you can share the knowledge. And it's not you telling them; it's them telling them. It's a totally different ballgame. There's a lot of credibility in that, so we appreciate that. On let's see, what excites you about the research that you're doing right now? Like, what's the most exciting thing that you might think is uncovering something like we call right here, right? The healing power of honey uncovered. What do you think like is that next thing that you're going to find, or are you excited about something right now?
I mean, you can see my passion from my words, I believe, but I love the honey, and honey excites me all the time because I keep learning about honey even after 13 years. I still learn from when I give a talk to beekeepers. They say, "Oh, honey is used for this." Oh, I didn't know that. And then I read in a book, uh, and then it tells about like how does the honey and honeybees actually always excite me. And again, there is still a lot of research that needs to be done about honey. Unfortunately, we are the only lab in the US analyzing honey for medicinal properties. So there is no other lab I couldn't find for last 3, 4 years. I mean, I keep looking and searching and asking USDA or other local organizations. I couldn't find labs that are analyzing honey for their medicinal properties. But you can find labs in Australia, in New Zealand, in Malaysia, or in Middle East, or in Europe. There are labs that they're analyzing the honeys for their medicinal potential. But in the US, it is just growing. That's number one. And number two is like we count several different properties. Like, for example, I don't have the means or I don't have the lab opportunity to analyze immunomodulatory effects of honey. Like, how does honey affect different immune cells? Again, there are so many studies from
So many. Wow.
Europe, Middle East, Asia, but there is no study from US about this. And I would love to collaborate with an immunologist or cell biologist. So please go ahead and I will give you the honey, and you look for the immunomodulatory activities of this honey. Or again, I don't have like we just recently started to use a cell biology lab. Now we are looking for which honey has better wound healing property, because although we have the antimicrobial antioxidant properties, but what about wound healing? Like when you scratch the cells with a make a wound among them, and you want to see them how how quickly they close the gap. So now we are doing the research in the field. So another one is like now we are trying to start to research about oral benefits of honey. Like one of my students group is they are researching about how does honey help with gingivitis or periodontitis. So, honey can feed the gingival fibroblasts, and by this way, it can help, especially after the cleaning of the teeth, so it can help the gums to grow faster. So, and then help and it preventing inflammation and also infection on the gums. Or how honey can be used, or propolis can be used for root canal because it's an anti-inflammatory, anti-infection agent. So again, I can count more than 20 projects right now out of my mind, but I don't have the means, or I don't have the lab, or I don't have the time, to do all this research. And there is a lot to learn about honey. And there's a lot of opportunities to convert honey into money.
Yes.
So one is like comb honey is the basic one, easiest one. But there are also, as you find out your honey more medical potential, you can start marketing it as high bioactivity honey or medical grade honey or compare it with Manuka. And again, this will increase the value of your honey. And even then, you can use your honey like to make some devices that can be like you can get a patent with your honey. So like
Wow.
making some different agents that can be used for sore throat or that can be used for skin or that can be used for others. So again, sometimes people say, why are you telling all these ideas? I mean, somebody will steal it and just do it in just in it. Okay, I'm an academician, I'm a scientist. Yes, I would be happy if they credit and then also send me a check at the end. But my journey is like to be beneficial, to serve the humanity.
Love
So
it.
my overall objective in my life is how can I serve my community better? So by sharing this knowledge, and I know it's also intellectual property in some cases, but sharing this knowledge is really makes me happy. And it's the my dopamine, I would say. Like more people learn about honey as a medicine, and more people use the honey as for medical purposes, and even some people can convert this into medical devices or get FDA approval, and then they just come up. So let's say local US honey is in the wound market. I will be proud of this. Again,
Yeah.
maybe it may not be my honey, it may not be my project directly, but I will be proud of this, that I have paved the way to promote the local US honey to become in the wound market or in the medical market.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. And I love that. That's the passion that you carry. I think, that's where we have a lot of alignment. We love serving, right? This is an organization of service. Everybody in the org just loves serving either somebody else in beekeeping or just their communities in general. And then we come together and make it a better place. We just make the world a better place.
yes, we
Pretty
are
incredible.
stronger together.
Yeah, it's better together. Absolutely. We have one more question. This is something that I want to know as well. Is the metal spoon with honey a myth or true?
It's a myth now because the metals may not interact with the honey. Most of the metals, like the honey, the spoons that we use today, are nickel cadmium or they are stainless steel. So which means that honey can oxidize if you put ferric, like if you put the iron rod into the honey, it will oxidize. But nobody puts iron rod, right, or iron or aluminum spoons directly. So most of the spoons that we use today are okay because they are stainless steel and then they do not release an iron into the honey, which may cause oxidation.
Okay. So it was true previously, and now it's probably not no longer true.
Yes, maybe 50 years ago, but
Right.
because at that time maybe we don't have stainless steel that much, and now like it's no standard right now, or even better, like they don't release an oxidation.
And there's a couple things. Alden's in Georgia. He's asking what U.S. honey is best for antifungal, but there was also one in here about the sourwood honey. So he's actually a sourwood producer. But what U.S. honey is the best for antifungal? Fungal.
I mean, it's very hard. Again, I didn't go to antifungal field too much, so we are just started to do some Candida albicans growth, and we're gonna do some dermatophytes. But we are just on the initial steps of those ones, and we will be maybe analyzing 10, 15 samples at this point. Again, I'll
Okay.
be happy to collaborate with a mycologist who studies fungus, and we can work on antifungal properties. And actually, at UTSA, we do have professors, and my students, our common students, are doing research in their labs as well. So it's growing,
Wow.
but it's not. It cannot happen overnight.
No, and we want to be, that working relationship as we've continued to do. But
Sure.
the ways that we can support in these areas, whether that's introductions, resources, funding, things of that nature, because this is so important. I mean, it is incredible what honey does for us. The bees that produce this, the pollination. I mean, there's all this is so connected that it's just incredibly beautiful. Definitely
Like
want
I
to.
just want to add
Oh,
one
go
thing
ahead.
here. Like
Go ahead.
when you say honey is a lot for us, I mean I use the motto "honey healing for humankind." So it's a verb. I mean in one of the religious scriptures. So honey is healing for humankind, which means that it can be healing for so many different diseases, and there is a lot to discover from the honey.
Yeah, and I wonder why we know that, right? Why does it need to be proven? Why does everything need to be proven when you have medicines on the shelf that we already know are not good for you? You pull out the piece of paper and it tells you about 50 or 80 things that are going to go wrong with you, although you just, want to control your cough or something. So why do we need to prove this when we know it? We know honey is it.
I mean, the modern medicine is more planned or like focusing on single ingredients. Like for example, for cough, you use only one chemical that can suppress your cough. Or for diabetes, you use medications that can help regulate your blood glucose level. One or two combinations. That's it. Even we combine them, we say combinations. But in honey, there is a synergistic effect. So you cannot pull out one chemical from the honey and then okay, let's make this one, a unique product. Like for example, methyl glyoxal from Manuka honey. It's known for 30 years, but nobody is using methyl glyoxal as an antimicrobial agent on the wounds directly because it is cytotoxic. It kills your cells as well. So the amount of chemicals inside the honey is very minuscule. They are strong enough to heal you, but they are not strong enough to harm you. Again, this is a dosage that makes a poison a medicine. So in the honey, the dosage is very well organized. It's very well balanced, and then it is used as a medicine. But again, you know about toxic honey, right? The med honey. So if you consume med honey, the chemical inside is granulotoxin too. So it will cause bradycardia, or it will cause heart attack, or it will cause convulsion, and even loss of oxygen in your brain. It may cause death. So honey can kill you if you don't know, like especially med honey can kill people. And I think I gave you the example before. It is one of the first bioweapons used in the history. It was med honey. Like the Persians used the med honey against the Roman soldiers. They just kind of make a deal with the villagers to put med honey on the roads of the Roman soldiers. And Roman soldiers, they said, okay, the villagers love us. They put honey for us. And they indulge into honey. They ate a lot. And then they end up not moving their arms or legs because it caused bradycardia, like slowing down of the heart. And then the Persian soldiers were able to kill all the Roman soldiers, more than 1,000 Roman soldiers, without losing any single Persian soldier.
Wow.
So honey can be used.
Military and honey, all the way back.
Oh, yeah.
Those uses. Well, we're so grateful for you. I want you to share in this experience as well. We have our two recipients here. We have Olivia Dillard, and one of our favorite state leaders, of course. We have all the favorites, Mr. Scott Steele from Louisiana. So Olivia and Scott, please email impact@hivesforheroes.org and she'll get you taken care of. No? So support @hivesforheroes.org. That was the wrong email. I apologize. Email support@hivesforheroes.org and Sherelle will end up taking care of that for you. It's always a pleasure. It's such an honor to be able to talk with you and learn every time, literally, that we get together. It's incredible.
I mean, thank you so much for having me. It's really my pleasure to share the knowledge of honey as medicine.
I love it. Thank you again, and we will talk to you next time. I'll be calling you soon. Awesome. What an incredible person. And obviously the research that he's been doing is literally shaping the world. People need to know this stuff. So anytime you want, please go to their website at Honey Pathway. It's at UTSA, the University of Texas, San Antonio, and they've got tons of resources available for you there. Again, thank you for coming tonight. We do this on a monthly basis on the second Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Time. So please continue, put it on your calendar, do the like and subscribe buttons on whatever channels that you are on so you get this amazing information from just incredible, incredible people. Again, we are Hives for Heroes, connecting veterans and first responders to beekeeping everywhere, providing connection, purpose, relationships, and service for your success. There's tons of stuff on the website. There's resources on the website that are by state. There's education on the website. There's just an incredible amount of stuff. Even VSOs. If you know a VSO or a first responder organization that supports people in your areas too, let us add them onto that as well. There's also an events page, so you can see events that are going on in your local areas. And please, if you know an event that is going on, add it yourself. There's an add button. You can put that feature onto the website. So thank y'all again so much for meeting us tonight at Connect and Serve, where we literally connect with some of the best people on the planet and are able to serve our communities in a wonderful way. Thank you so much.